11th. It is 7:18 a.m. It is a Saturday morning, and trust me when I tell you that I would not be up at this moment unless I was here to share an experience with you. By the way, guys, strap on for this one. This was pretty intense, and this was after, I had a brief experience in a restaurant a week or so before, but this was not that kind of experience. So here we go. I laid down after doing my usual thing in the middle of the night, just up working on Spanish and other projects that I am currently working on. I have this new thing now where I put on not just storm sounds, but people walking in the rain. I don't know. That seems to relax me quite a bit. Hearing the rain hitting the top of an umbrella. And this particular one I listened to is in Japan. I guess this person walks and records themselves walking in storms. So it's a very cool thing. So I just put that on. I was just laying down and I was relaxed. And I was in sort of the kind of mood where I was like, okay, so if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, then it is what it is. Yesterday, it was a bit of a challenging day yesterday at work and otherwise. So I wasn't in the best of moods at this point, but I was open to something happening. So I laid down. It was about, what time was it, guys? It had to be about 4 something, maybe 4:15, 4:30 in the morning or so. And so I laid down and I was listening to the sounds and I was just resting. And within, I would say, about 15, 20 minutes maybe of laying there, I went into that middle place, and it did literally feel, guys, like a light switch, like you flip the light switch and I was suddenly there, and I knew I was there, and I could feel myself kind of turn a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is gonna happen. Great, wonderful. I was excited because, again, I hadn't had a really, really full-blown experience for a while. Suddenly, I felt myself in motion, and I was moving pretty fast, but very consistent. It wasn't like a roller coaster ride. Like I've told you guys before, sometimes I will have that roller coaster ride experience where, there's twists and turns and things like that. That was not this travel time that I had with this. It wasn't like that at all. This was a very consistent motion, and I was just going and going and going. And by the way, it was a distance away. I know it was. I spent a lot of time traveling on this one, and then at some point I slowed down, and then I went suddenly to the left. Felt like I went off my bed again. But it's interesting. Most times there is this sort of going off the bed, and then there's a slow descent, guys, a slow descent. I literally felt like I was thrown almost, it's so funny, almost angrily, I guess. I don't know. It was really weird. It was as if someone had just thrown me up into the air. I was like, somebody's upset. I don't think it was that. I think it was just my sense of what was happening and my translation of what was happening. By the way, translation is going to play a big role in this. And that is simply because, and this is more of a side note here before I continue, I've begun to realize that on many of these places, I don't think they're speaking English or any language that I recognize, but some aspect of me, the traveler aspect of me, the part of me that has traveled since forever, has ways, equipment, I don't know, has developed ways to translate these beings and for me to be able to speak to them, even though I don't know who and what they are many times. That's what this travel part of me, the traveling aspect of me, has done. So many things that I'm going to tell you, and this is going on from different experiences, moving forward from this one and other experiences as well that I explained to you. These are translations, guys. These are things that I'm telling you, I'm translating to you. They may not be exactly what it is that I saw, simply because some of the things are, I think, beyond my grasp to be able to comprehend. So what I'm doing here with you is I'm translating in the best way that I can to try and help you to understand what the experience was. So going back to my experience. So I felt like I hit the ground. So funny, and I bounced. And it was a little hard when I hit the ground. I mean, it didn't hurt, but I did feel that bounce. And then I got up, and eventually the darkness lifted. And I was in this place. Okay, so it was dark, but there were blue spotlights everywhere. And one of the spotlights, and there, I don't remember or recall there being a source. It was just coming from somewhere, these spotlights. It illuminated the name, like a sign. And the sign, I do believe, was like three-dimensional, like I could see it, and it was sort of hanging there in the air. And it said, "Surf Soft." And then the rest of it, I think, was like EBT or something like that. There were letters after that. But I do remember the Surf Soft, and I remember thinking to myself, just remember surf. As I do to try and help my memory with these things, remembering one word. So I remembered the word surf because I saw surf, and then I saw soft. And it's interesting because when I first saw that sign, I thought to myself, that's a very familiar thing that I'm seeing. And I thought, people are going to know what this is. Maybe this sounds like some brand or something like that. But just another side note here, when I went and tried to look up Surf Soft and then put in EBT, there's nothing like that. I think there's a fabric softener called Surf Soft or whatever, but nothing like a place or whatever like that. Or I was thinking for some reason like a game system or something. I don't know. It was really weird. I don't play games or anything, but I thought that at the same time. And no, nothing like that when I did a little bit of research. So I'm looking around this place, this dark place with this sign. And at some point, I see this very attractive blonde woman walking. And actually, I passed her and she smiled. She couldn't have been more than, say, maybe 21 years old. She was in her 20s. And I smiled back at her, and then I stopped. And then I approached her and I said, excuse me. I said, I just want to know, are you the person that's going to tell me that I have to go back? Because we know, those of you who have listened to my experiences know that there's a being that will suddenly appear many times like a trigger and will tell me sometimes you need to go back to Earth or the 3D world or whatever. And so I said to this woman, I said, if you are, then tell me now. Because I wanted to get it out of the way. I didn't want any surprises, And this woman, she smiled at me and she said, no, She's like, no, I'm not here to tell you to go back. And then I looked at her and I said, by the way, what world is this? What place is this? And she said, the world is called Yield. Now, I know I mentioned that, I think, in a previous video. There was a moment, side note here, there was a moment here in the 3D world where I was laying down and I heard the word yield at some point, and I felt that it meant that I needed to yield to power, to energy, to those things that are inside me, to allow them to come through me. And that's what I felt that meant in that moment. But this lady was telling me that this world was called Yield, and I'm not sure if I just heard it that way. And again, we're talking about a translation here. I'm not sure, but that's what she said. She said the world was called Yield. Now, once she heard me say this, like ask her what the world was, and after she had told me the name of the world, she then suddenly got excited and she realized that I was a traveler. And one of the things she said was, so many people come through this place. I'm thinking that she's meaning beings or travelers, or many beings come here to this world to yield. And suddenly she went to this other area of where I was. Again, let me stress to you that I don't know if I was inside or outside. I'm not exactly sure what whether there was an inside or outside in this place, but she went to what I believe was a chamber. And in this chamber, I can't really describe the chamber to you, but when she stood under this chamber, in this chamber, she transformed. And she was joined by another lady who also transformed. There was two of them at this point. And they went from looking human to me to looking like something else. And the only thing I can really describe to you at this point was their eyes. That's what I remember. I remember their eyes. Their eyes were suddenly a luminescent green. So they weren't just green, they were luminescent. They glowed. There seemed to be a glow with the eyes. They were amazing. And their skin color changed too. Their skin texture changed, but it was indescribable, guys. Indescribable. So they came back, and after this, they were joined by what I must tell you was the strangest being that I have ever seen in any of my travels. I'm going to do my best today to try and translate or to describe what this being looked like. I came up with a few things, but I don't know. It doesn't do it justice. So, first question I'm going to ask you, it is going to sound strange because I'm assuming that most of my audience is at least adult. So I'm sure that there are some that are teens and maybe perhaps younger. But for those of you who are familiar with Sesame Street, yeah, I said Sesame Street. For those of you who are familiar with Sesame Street, there is a creature on there called a snuffleupagus. Now, the snuffleupagus has this plush skin, long trunk with eyes. It kind of resembles an elephant in a way, but, not as big and furry like a plush animal or whatever. So, this being that joined the two ladies that walked up to me, this being reminded me somewhat of a snuffleupagus, I guess, but it did not have eyes. It did not have a face. It did have trunks, and the trunks, there were a number of them that were extending down, And the color that I remember with this particular being was beige. It was a beige color, and it was plush feeling, and it was a living being. And I remember it came up on me, and at first I panicked. Just initial reaction, like, what is that? What is that? And I couldn't see the ladies anymore because this being sort of filled my entire perspective. But I could hear the lady's voice, and she said, "It's okay, it's okay. This being just wants to connect with you, just wants to love you and connect with you." Again, now, these are translations that I'm telling you guys. This is the sense that I got from being with this very strange looking being. So I got over being kind of really afraid, and I started touching it, and it was a really nice feeling. Once I started to touch it, once I started to rub it, I just have to tell you that there was an exchange of something between us, an exchange of affection, like you would give a hug or a kiss, but it was far, far deeper than that. And I don't think it would have been possible physically to hug this being anyways. So I wouldn't have been able to hug. I don't know if I would have been able to kiss the being, but there was this exchange, guys, that was so deep. That's the only thing I can really tell you. After this brief, maybe it was a longer exchange, after this exchange, I told them, or the being, and by the way, the other thing that I want to note here is that it's very possible that they could have been separate but also one at the same time. This was another feeling that I got. I told this being that I had to leave, I had to go, I wanted to go back. And it was interesting because this being seemed to be, or these beings seemed to be very upset about the fact that I had to leave. They did not want me to go. They wanted me to stay. But I told the being, I said, I gotta go back. It was funny. I think for a moment there was almost this sense that they were trying to make me feel guilty. I don't know. It was really weird, but eventually I just thought to my mind, I want to be back, and I came back to the physical world. I returned. And that was my adventure. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.